Hello, Culture Matters podcast. Today, I'm very excited to introduce you to our guest. Before I do that, here's a quote I picked just for this episode. Most people have attained their greatest success just one step beyond their greatest failure. Napoleon Hill. See, we believe here at Culture Matters, when we read, to think, write, to develop, listen to hear what is unsaid, and speak to let go, we develop more value for ourselves and others. So our purpose of this podcast is to uncover the genius of our guest with the goal to make you, the listener, your curiosity cool. Because our vision is that human culture is open, curious, and focused on creating the future. So our mission is to read, write, listen, and speak every single day. It's going to be easy to do that with my good friend, Pete Fournier, CEO of All Things Insurance Group, creator of Slinging It with Sales, speaker, coach, mentor, strategist, financial strategist, advisor, 1% plus producer, super talented, uber badass guy, friend who's been on the show before. Listen to episode 100, season 9, totally dynamic conversation. Get into that. Pete, thanks for coming. Oh, and the walking secret is what I like to call you sometimes when I'm walking around my house looking at my bookshelf. And we could unpack that. Thanks for doing the show again, my friend. I'm excited about it.
Of course, I appreciate the invite.
All Things Insurance Group. This is like everywhere and all things. And I love the colors and the logo. And what's going on? How's it been going? And what do people need to hear when it comes to this topic? Whether that's on, people listening to this that are looking for opportunity as for the rest of their careers, or as well as people that could likely benefit from the value proposition. I got a million questions around all that.
Yeah,
or if you want to talk about conspiracies, we could talk about that too.
It's been a wild 15 months. So I don't know if even if it was in the works, maybe it was in the works, but it wasn't launched yet from the last episode. So it's been a crazy 15 months. In November of 2021, I incorporated All Things Insurance Group. As you know, I've been selling insurance for 12 and a half years now, which is where some of this gray hair comes from. But we wanted to be an insurance marketing organization or an IMO or an agency for every insurance product, but also for every type of agent. And the whole goal of the company is, one, to eliminate the friction of buying insurance, whether it's life, Medicare, major medical, group, P&C, auto, et cetera, and eliminate the friction for agents to get business up and running successfully. So that's the sole mission statement on both the consumer and the agent side. It's been pretty good. We launched technically in January of 2022, and we have about 372 brokers since then now across the country. And I opened a brick and mortar office for consumers here in Wilmington, North Carolina.
What do you think is the reason hundreds of people are saying this is the solution to my problem?
Yeah, so on the consumer side, it's very hard unless you go to like a Progressive or a State Farm or something of that nature to have an all-in-one resource on the insurance side of things. Most agencies are specialized, or you feel like I'm going to go to my, car insurance guy and maybe buy some life insurance. Very few and far between do you find a brokerage that has 100+ carriers that can literally shop everybody and is not beholden to a specific carrier or insurance product. So it makes us very unbiased from a consumer perspective, which is very nice. And then on the agent side, or people looking for opportunities to be entrepreneurs themselves, the hardest part is prospecting, marketing, obviously sales training, etc. So I found a way to kind of bundle an all-in-one solution together, where if a broker decides to come over, or agent, whatever descriptive term you want to use, if they decide to come over and work with us, they're a true partner. And it's like, here's the box, go get it. You don't have to think, you don't have to do. Here are the lead strategies, the marketing strategies, the training. You just got to pick up the phone every once in a while, and that's it.
Now, I've been seeing you all over the internet, picking up the phone. What is going on? It's great. But also, like, are you making these dials with people and getting in the trenches and slinging your, like, I don't mean that. That's your slinging it, right? Like you're really good at that. So I want to unpack that, talking to people and how, because that seems like a lot of people have an issue with that or aren't sure how to approach that. So first question is, have you been you've been out there? Can you unpack that a bit? Like people that follow you or haven't, you got to follow Pete. It's a lot of motivation, a lot of inspiration, a lot of tactics.
Yeah, I'm in the trenches, a little bit less so being owner and CEO. There's a lot of like large scale things that I'm doing on a daily basis, but I still love selling. It's a huge moneymaker. If I wanted office furniture for this office locally, I went out, sold, and got the money to buy the office furniture. You know what I mean?
Wow, that's great.
So one, obviously from a monetary perspective, it makes sense. Two, though, is like I always hated having a manager, mentor, boss, right? That would bark at you from their ivory tower and be like, this is how we used to do things when I was in the trenches 20 years ago. And you're like irrelevant. I actually, one of the captive agencies that I worked for like 12 years ago, I won some contest to ride out with like one of the main owners, and we went to like 6, 7 houses, and this dude couldn't close a door. But every week he had this motivational speech and get out there and get after it. And I left soon after, but like, I couldn't stand that non-believability. It's like practice what I preach, but I can't do it myself. So I never want my brokers and agents working with me to feel that way. Like I'm barking at them, but, Pete's not doing it himself.
Do you think that the great cultures lose great people because of that reason?
Oh, 100%. And like you can easily, me being one person, I can easily see the shift in agents' mentalities when I start posting sales in our Slack channel. The motivated ones will be like, man, I got to get off my ass and work. And some of the ones that could never be motivated fall to the wayside because they're like, oh, I can never catch up or whatever the case may be. And they kind of weed themselves out, which is also nice. No offense to those people, this business isn't for everybody. It's nothing against them. But for the real people that want to be driven forward, I think the leader being out there and making it happen drives those people to do more.
What are some ways that you've that have not worked or have worked when it comes to, because you mentioned you're the CEO, you've got a hell of a lot of other responsibilities that it's hard for other people to relate and empathize with simultaneously. So how have you been able to, what has worked for you and what hasn't when it comes to showing the way as well as doing the other things that they can never empathize with because they don't own the company?
Yeah, trying a lot of different aspects of, I did a couple win months over the last year or two, where like I would go hard in the paint for 30 days and write as much business as humanly possible. Wow. Some people took that as like, well, I'll never be Pete, so I'm just going to quit. And maybe that affected some people negatively. That could have been good, but it was like, oh, that's too much. I can never be on that pace or run a mile a minute or achieve that much production. So that was like a positive and negative. I think keeping it consistent on a weekly or monthly basis, if I'm putting up $15,000, $20,000 a month, maybe more, or I'm signing a group, or I'm selling a new concept that I will then unravel to the agency on a future date. I think that helps the most, is them seeing consistency. And yes, I'm running the company, but I'm also selling 5 or 6 apps a week. You know what I mean? And that inspires them to do more. At least I think. They can tell me otherwise, but
what do you think it makes you so good with people?
I want to, and I think I empathize really well from an agent perspective and a client perspective. Now, I'm also, and my agents will probably tell you, I'm a very no nonsense person. Like, don't tell me you made 200 dials today and didn't make any sales. Either you suck or you're lying. And either way, you're wrong. You know what I mean? So I'm always going to tell it like it is. But from a empathetic standpoint, both with clients and with agents, like I've been in their shoes before. You know what I mean? Now, granted, I can't empathize that well with maybe like a 70-year-old Medicare client. There's a little age gap and living gap and stuff like that with that. But I could talk to them like they're my parents or my grandparents, which is okay. But on the agent side, like I know we talked on the last episode, I've been broke as a joke before. So I get it. I understand not having money for leads. I understand door knocking sucks. I understand cold calling stuff. I've been there and I got stories up the yin yang for it. So I think that relatability. Arizona. I think that relatability helps a lot from an agent perspective. And yeah, I like to think I'm pretty decent at it.
Is there still opportunity in that strategy? Like, let's say said broker says, all right, all things insurance group. And it's like, yep, I'll meet you in Arizona, or I'll meet you in Alaska, or is that still a thing that people do, or is there still value in that type of thinking or that type of strategy? And then if whether there is or isn't, what was that for you, and what did that do for you?
I definitely think there still is. I think unfortunately our industry has gotten lazier in the last decade or so. Reason being, there's no excuse to not do business in our industry right now. You got Zoom, you got telemarketing, you got Facebook marketing, YouTube, etc. Like, you don't have to cold call out of the yellow pages anymore. Like when I first started, you know what I mean? It's too easy. But I forget that whole saying, but easy times make for lazy people or whatever, right?
Weak men.
Weak men. I think it's the same thing for insurance agents. Is like, you don't have to get on a plane anymore and fly to Arizona and door knock for 50 hours over the course of 5 days. You know what I mean? But I think there's still true value in that from the mentality standpoint of, I'm going to fly to a place. I know nobody. All I can do is work for 4 or 5 days. There's nothing fun to do. Like, I would implore you to go to like some random city in the Midwest that's not even a city, you know, maybe a township or something like that, where there's a Buffalo Wild Wings and a hotel, and that's it. You know, you got food, you got shelter, and you got houses to prospect. And that will formulate a mentality for you where there's no distraction. You know, I understand people have families. I do too now. I got a baby, and it's hard.
Congratulations.
Thank you. It's hard. But sometimes you got to take 4 or 5 days out of your year and go make it happen for yourself. And
are you saying that it's never been easier, but that's why it's harder?
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's
interesting.
Too easy to achieve what you want to achieve, but the easiness is making people lazier. You know, oh, I'll do it tomorrow. I'll hop on the phones tomorrow. I'll get on a Zoom tomorrow. I'll schedule calls tomorrow. I'll buy leads tomorrow, because everything is so instant in today's day and age. You don't have to drop 20,000 pieces of mail in a state across the country, wait 6 to 8 weeks, and then call these little cards, hope for enough appointments, and then get on a plane. You know,
what do some of the top people do today that is different?
There's a lot more, I think, digital marketing than ever before. People doing online seminars, which is crazy. I think COVID really didn't do much to hurt our business. It really propelled us forward, because even the carriers came up with some new solutions on how to sell virtually. So, I mean, you can literally sit in your pajamas and make 250 grand a year. Like, it's the most insane thing ever. Now, granted, I tell people they should probably even put on dress clothes if they're working in their home office, you know what I mean? Just to feel like you're going to work, not going to do laundry in the middle of the day. But it's easy enough to do that.
And for those that have no idea and they haven't listened to season 9, episode 100, what value proposition is behind All Things Insurance Group? What is at the basis of this conversation we're having around sales and customer facing? Can we unpack that a bit?
Yeah, from an agency standpoint, I like to think I'm probably the best insurance salesperson out there, and I want to keep relevant, which is why I keep writing personal business. But if you're coachable, if you listen, if you take what I'm telling you and practice it, because that's the other part with sales training and motivation, is like they listen to it once and they're like, oh, I got it. Like, you got to habitually do that stuff. But if you take the words that I teach you and you employ your own work ethic, because I can't make you pick up the phone, you will make money, and a lot. So that's the one thing, is like, I know how to sell pretty much every insurance product out there. So I'm going to be able to teach you how to do the same thing. The other aspects is more so product knowledge, the marketing perspective, because a lot of agents are running around with no plan and no mentorship, because, you know, with all due respect to our industry, it's a giant pyramid scheme. You know, there's a guy at the top, me. There's all these managers, agents, right? You can recruit till the cows come home, like an MLM. So I wouldn't say scheme, but it's an MLM. So you could recruit 1 million people and not know what the hell you're doing, and implore no mentorship into them, and still make.
Does that happen?
Oh yeah, all the time, all the time. I mean, I talk to probably 40 to 50 agents a week from other organizations, and, you know, maybe it's a recruiting call, maybe it's, you know, 10 minutes, maybe it's a 30-minute coaching call, whatever the case may be. And 9 times out of 10, it's my mentor ghosted me, or my upline's not responding, or she doesn't know what she's doing. She's never sold before, because you could have a lot of people that are great recruiters and they can't sell shit. So, and you can still make a ton of money doing that.
Is this creating a lot of disenfranchised people?
Oh yeah.
That got in because they didn't do something else. So because they chose that, they thought that was like the panacea. This is all just coming to me now. They thought maybe this is the panacea to their life's problems. So like, maybe that's an opportunity for people like you that know the business really well and know. Can you unpack that a bit?
Yeah, I want you to treat it like, if you come over to me, I want you to treat it like a business, right? And I want to teach you to run it like a business. You could be tracking ROI. You should be tracking your lead resources. You can't say a lead sucks until you run it for 90 days, like a lead source, that kind of stuff. I don't want you just facilitating transactions and feel like a used car salesman on a daily basis. You know what I mean? But there are a lot of people out there.
Are those fighting words?
Yeah. No offense to used car salesmen, because a lot of mentors out there like Brad and Grant.
I think I set some bias.
Okay. But a lot of people, I feel like, are running around out there selling the dream on stuff, but they're meeting their dream financially by selling the dream to others, but they never sold a damn thing in their life except the dream. You know, so like you mentioned, getting a lot of these disenfranchised people or jaded ass people that could be killers if they just had a little bit of guidance, but now they're really pissed off. You know what I mean?
So back to the original question, what's underneath it all? What's the value proposition to the consumer? So are we talking about health insurance, life insurance?
Yeah. Life, health, Medicare, group benefits, ACA, pretty much any insurance product you could possibly need, we sell in 43 states.
And now, these are people that are listening to this, regardless of what they do for a living, they likely need to be covered in the A or B or C or D or E. And maybe if they're a doctor, neuroscientist, car salesman, they know that and not what you do. And the idea, right? Like,
correct.
These are actual products for consumers.
Yep.
That have problems. And you're saying that the MLM-esque is more of companies looking at it in a way that you disagree with how they're looking at actually helping their brokering, their employees, their sales.
Right. And the lack of the mentorship in most of those organizations winds up affecting the end user consumer, because they're not trained properly.
Like the consumer's paying for all this.
Exactly.
Essentially.
So you wind up getting trained on how to sell crap products to people. They get screwed, or it's not the best product for them or whatever, because people are just running around slinging policies and they're not trained on how to do any type of assessment. So I would say arguably 70% of our business is what we call replacement business. They bought a product from somebody, broker, agent, whatever, and whether it be a company with their group benefit plan, an individual consumer with a life insurance product, someone signing up for Medicare, whatever. I would say 70% of our business is us going in, or one of my brokers going in and unraveling what somebody else did and putting the client in a better situation.
Why do you think or maybe this question's wrong, my assumption, but my assumption is there's a lot of money, a lot of liquidity flowing into this sector. So if that's true, why? Why is
Well,
there so many hands in the pot?
yeah, there's so much money coming in terms of premium from the consumer, and it all gets divvied up into little baby pieces, right? So I tell my agents I only make a dime when you make a dollar, right? But they only make a dollar if the consumer pays two. You know what I mean? So, and then
Okay.
it trickles up to other managers, the carriers, et cetera. And you probably know, because you have some type of insurance, whether it be on your car or whatever, it's never cheap. It's not like you're paying $5 a month for a policy. You know, it can get expensive.
Yeah.
So, plus the carriers pay a very high commission to salespeople that's not from the consumer. Like, the consumer doesn't have to pay anything except their premium. But a lot of carriers are paying your first year's premium to the agent as a commission. So the insurance companies are making killer money to be able to do that. You know, their sunk cost is like years 1 and 2, and then they start being profitable. It's wild.
Do you think the incentive structures can create issues?
Oh yeah, because you have a lot of companies out there that will bonus an agent off of one particular product. And that particular product is dog shit. And you know what I mean? Just as an example. But the agent's making 20% more on said product. So that's all they're pushing, because they're thinking about their own paycheck, which is completely okay. You got to be slightly selfish to be a salesperson. You know what I mean? But at the end of the day, you got to do right by your client, or you're not going to retain anybody. So we have the other value prop is I don't have any biases towards any one product. And that's for the consumer and for the agent. So the agent can have free reign to sell whatever they want, whatever's best for the client. And the client knows, hey, Pete's not going to screw me because he only likes ABC company.
Has the industry's culture changed since you got into it in any way?
Yeah,
I'm curious about that.
I think I go to a bunch of conferences every single year, and I think it's getting less cool within the industry to show off your watch, your car, your house. Some people like it, but some people still, that overall theme of disenfranchised, some people get like almost defensive about it. Like, well, I don't need that. Yeah, I don't need it either, but I want it. Like, come on. I only need a roof over my head and food and water. You know what I mean? It's not about the needs, it's about the wants. But when I first started, like, everyone was recruited based on money. Now it's a lot of, and I think it's, you know, other cultural norms of maybe people being too nice or whatever the case may be, but it's more about, oh, you want to get into this business to really help people, or you want to donate to your favorite charity and that's why you want to make money. I want to help people too, but the only way to do that is to be financially successful. And whether you want to write a check or donate your time or build a school or whatever, it all stems from money first. So like, the only reason to get into this business, you could have all these outlying reasons. The sole reason is to make a shitload of money. You know what I mean? And I think the industry is slightly getting away from that and getting into that cultural norm of like, oh, you do it for all this PC stuff. No, you do it to make a lot of money. Otherwise, you shouldn't.
Do you think people are deceiving themselves?
I think so. I think, you know, we know each other long enough to know I'm a pretty straight shooter. Like, I'm not going to fluff anything. If I think something sucks, I'm going to tell you. If I think it's great, I'm going to be over the moon, right? I think a lot of people almost censor themselves in wanting to deliver an answer. Like, I interview a ton of people on a weekly basis. Most of them are lying to me. Wow. And it's not about production, or it's not about, you know, past things. I'd rather you tell me, hey, I used to sell over here and I was terrible, right? Don't fib about that. But a lot of it's like, well, why do you want to, I ask everybody, why do you want to be in this business? And I would say 10-15% of people are honest and they're like, I want to make a shitload of money. Everybody else is like, oh, my friend was affected by a life insurance policy and whatever. And like, that's all well and good. I love those other reasons, but that's not going to give you the conviction that you need to be able to transfer belief to your prospect to sell them a product, in my mind.
You think that why do you think the reason that it is more of that narrative that's being talked about in the industry now? Is it manipulation? Is it confusion? Is it looking for identity? Is it, I don't know. Like, what do you think some of the reasons, or are people trying to do better?
I think
And they don't know
recruiters
how?
and organizations as a whole are trying to be not more PC, but they're trying to get everybody.
Huh.
I want to advertise to the masses. I don't want the masses. I want like a couple hundred killers. You know what I mean? And there's all debt liability and all this other stuff that goes into it, why you don't want a bajillion people on your team. You know what I mean? But you think of it during like COVID, right? Watching car commercials, and they're like, they'd say things like, we really give back and we really do this or we really do that. I don't give a shit. I want to know if the car's good and it's not going to break down on the side of the road when I'm driving. You know what I mean? And if you want to give back, I think this is Chris Rock or somebody said this, like, I wanted to buy a Subaru, and the guy at the Subaru dealership was telling me, well, if you buy this Subaru, we're going to give $500 to your favorite charity, like as if it was a sales tactic. And he's like, if you want to be charitable, you take $500 off the car because I'm my favorite charity. Okay. You know what I mean? So like, it's this weird narrative of like, these companies aren't even talking about their products anymore. They're talking about, yes.
That's like just what I started thinking about. Like, what's going on here? Yeah, exactly. I've got like Karl Marx over there. I can't reach it from here. I can't. It's so big too. It's all over there.
It's so weird. Like, companies don't talk about their products or services anymore. They talk about how much they're saving the environment or giving back to, you know, whatever charity. And it's like, man, you sell widgets. Just sell the widgets. You know what I mean?
How important do you think is honesty in building this company that you're building?
Oh, huge.
And I want to say that you said 374. That's a lot of people that want to get behind you in a year.
Yeah.
It's been a year since you've been on the show. So you've done it more in a year than most do ever. Like, I want to acknowledge that.
Appreciate it.
It's really working. It's congratulations.
Yeah.
So my question is, like, how important is you or someone listening to this, them telling people how they actually feel?
Yeah.
Whether it's owning a business, working for someone. Let's talk about character for a second, you know, or
you got to be honest in this business, and you really have to be from the top down. You have to be fully transparent from the leads that you're using to the marketing resources, to how things are generated, to compensation. You know, someone might, I've heard horror stories at other organizations like, oh, they told me I was making X, but then I got my paycheck and it was Y. And then I went back and I was like, why is it this way? And they're like, well, it was a different product and you get paid this much on this product, but not this one. It's like, dude, here is the deal. And if you don't like it, like, I'm not for you, and that's okay. But like, I'm not going to try to sell everybody on everything. So it's honesty, yes, but it's also transparency from the owner of the brokerage all the way down to working with the client. Like, here's how the product works. Maybe this one doesn't have every bell and whistle because you're a type 2 diabetic or something like that.
Do you think that the transparency with the salesperson to the consumer actually starts with the transparency of the company to the salesperson?
100%, because I think that salesperson is going to mirror whatever the company is projecting onto them. So like,
Powerful psychological.
Sales. Yeah, I love sales. I trademark sling it because you should go out and sling it. But at the end of the day, I am not teaching people to rip other people off. You know, if you can't get them the best product with the best service because of XYZ factors, like, walk out of the house. You know what I mean? Don't push garbage on.
Do you think that's at an all-time high because of the level of uneducated but desiring people that are getting lured into the business?
And they don't have knowledge. You know, if you wanted to look up how to sell insurance, you might find me and like 4 other people teaching you. You know, you can't pick up a book and be like, oh, this is the way to do it. So it's whatever that mentor or initial recruiter puts into their mind. Hey, this is the best way to do it. And what are you supposed to do? I trust you. You brought me in. I'm just going to run around aimlessly doing what you told me to do. And a lot of people out there are scumbags. So it inadvertently turns the salespeople into scumbags, whether they know it or not, because they don't know what they don't know yet, especially in their first year,
How big of a piece in this, opportunistically as well as potentially in a bad, turn for the worst, technology is in this? Is like, so how big, how much of an impact is technology having, whether it be what we're doing right now, social media platforms, operate like on the back end type tech stuff for the business? How big of an impact is that making in the industry?
So from a tech standpoint on running the business first, it's unbelievable what you can track metrics wise. Like, I don't even think I use my systems to its full capacity yet because I've only been on the platforms for like a year, but like I can measure how much a dial is worth to an agent if they're tracking their data appropriately in the CRM. So like every time you pick up the phone, Jay, you're making $4, whether you know it or not. And that's so powerful to be able to tell an agent, hey, oh, you were dialing for 200 dials yesterday and you made no sales. Well, technically you made $800 based on your sales metrics. So don't worry about it. Keep going. It's wild, right? Now, there's also a negative of it in terms of like, one, making lazy people, but there's a lot more openings for ticky-tack fraud type stuff. Like a lot of things are e-applications now on the consumer side. So if you are a consumer out there and you're asking someone over the phone or via Zoom or whatever for insurance and they're selling it to you, ask for their national producer number, or their license number, or whatever the case may be. They'll gladly give it to you. It's like having your diploma from, MD school in the back of a doctor's office. Like, it's okay to ask for that stuff, because back in the day when I first started, everything was on paper. Very tough to forge someone's signature on paper. Yeah. You know what I mean? Very easy to click a button and just hit submit now. So it makes bad people worse, I feel like, from a tech perspective, where it's also a crazy awesome tool for the good ones out there, because they can get a lot more done in a short amount of time.
Oh, this SVB bank.
Yeah.
And all the things that are happening in our macroeconomic culture, is that having any impact in your industry and in all, in the psyche? And
unfortunately, fortunately for me, because I'm in a recession-proof business, unfortunately for the consumer, catastrophes are our best revenue streams.
Really?
COVID, we obliterated it. This banking thing, we're taking annuities and life insurance sales to the max, because people, who's going to fail first? A friggin' regional bank or an insurance company? Probably the little tiny rinky-dink bank, because the insurance company is insuring the damn bank. You know what I mean? They're not going to fail. Wow. And they're reinsured and reinsured and reinsured. So from a business perspective, it really helps because people don't know where to put their money. And granted, like, let's be
so the fear creates like, hey, I got to get in these products.
Exactly.
And these products are actually can help people.
Yep. And it alleviates some of the objections that you have out there. We incorporated into our script just this week because of it. Well, people are like, well, I don't need an insurance policy for my funeral. I'll just save that money in a bank account and let my, next of kin pay for it. You want this to happen to your hard-earned money, or do you want to pay 40 or 50 bucks a month for a final expense policy that'll be guaranteed to be there? And they're like, wow, yeah, you make a good point, and it's not like, it's a sales tactic, but it's not fake. That friggin' happens.
Well, I got a question for you on that, though. How important is it to help people make decisions?
They will, especially in our industry, no one is going to come to you. I probably can count on one hand over 12 and a half years, come to you and say, I really need a term insurance policy.
I was about to ask you that, but damn it.
You know what I mean? Like, you can advertise till the cows come home.
Okay, so that's very rare. That doesn't happen.
Very rare, unless they have a need, or maybe we put out an ad that says, hey, if you have existing coverage, we can save you 20 to 40%, possibly depending on age and health, then maybe you're driving traffic to you. But
So
no
would
one's
you say
coming in
that
off the
sales,
street.
in essence, is helping people make decisions they're inordinately not going to make on their own?
No.
And in 12 years of your life, people have not called you and said, I'm ready to do A, B, C, D, E, F, G. Because then you wouldn't have then there would be no need for a salesperson.
No, they would just go to the carrier and be like, I want this. And they'd be like, oh, okay. And then we'd be
So
out of it.
even with all the information that we have with Google and everything, people still need somebody to help them make. And when I say people, I'm talking about me, I'm talking about like you, we're talking about ourselves. We still need someone to help us make a decision, is your viewpoint. And in your experience, only a couple people in your whole career have come to you, A, B, C, D, F, G. Is that kind of what we're
100%. I mean, speaking on lazy agents or lazy salespeople in general and technology meshing together.
Yeah.
There are a couple companies out there that have a self-enrollment link for really basic insurance policies, maybe a term insurance or something like that. So imagine, Jay, that I'm said agent and I advertise to you. And then I'm like, hey, buddy, I'm going to send you a link. You buy what you think you need, and then I'll get a little commission off of it. You're going to have no idea what you want, need, desire, whatever. And even if you do, you're probably going to uninsure yourself or like buy an insignificant amount because it's really cheap and it's not doing what you're, supposed to.
And the stress of being a person, having interpersonal conflicts, lacking economic resources at varying degrees, which has a subjective component, right? There's always a bigger boat. So people getting stressed, making decisions.
Yeah, absolutely. Like it's the same thing. I'm a very A-type personality. I hate, the only thing that sucks about owning a business for me is operations. I can't stand it. I'd rather write a check or swipe my credit card and have someone else do it. Right. It's the same thing with insurance. We're not like in tune enough to be like, oh yeah, I need this, and this to be covered. And I'm going to analyze and whatever. A lot of people will say they won't come in off the street and be like, I need term insurance. But I have had hundreds of clients be like, what do you think I should do? I don't care. What do you think I should do? Like, well, I can't buy it for you, but here are 3 options, that I'm bringing to the table based on your scenario. Now you got to pick one because I can't pick for you. But you will have that happen where, like you said, people get stressed, frustrated, and they're like, I don't want to be bothered. What do you think? What do you think I should do? I don't know. You know what I mean? Here's the scenario, and you got to pick though. You got to make it.
You think it makes financial sense to wait until we're married to get the term insurance?
It's only it's the cheapest yesterday. So based on age and health is how they come up with rates, and male or female. Males are always more expensive because our mortality rate is higher. So
hey, can you get a term insurance policy if you're single, not married, and then like make sure it goes to somebody else when you die?
Yeah, as long as the
not
beneficiary
married to you or something, like,
yeah, as long as
I
the
could give mine to
beneficiary
Pete.
has insurable interest is what it's called. So business partner, key man policy could be assigned to a corporation, to a trust, to a kid, to a nephew, whatever the case may be, right? You also buy a term insurance, not to get super in the weeds, but you also buy term insurance nowadays, at least the right term insurance for living benefits purposes, because some of these terms come with riders that you don't have to pay for. And in the event that you get a critical, chronic, or terminal illness, or you get into a car accident, you lose both use of your legs, as an example, it will pay out a percentage of the death benefit while you're alive, tax-free. So
Great.
A lot of people are like, oh, do I buy term? When I get married, when I have a kid, make sure they get through college, whatever the case may be. You can, or if you're like a 22-year-old listening to this and you have no liabilities, man, lock it in early at friggin' $20 a month, because you'll need it eventually. Get a 30-year term. It'll cover you for catastrophic things that may happen throughout your life. But if you lock it in early at 22 and you get married at 32, you still got a 20-year term left and you only paid $20. So what are we doing? You know what I mean?
Dude, when I started Culture Matters, I had no insurance. My friend, who's just episode 122, if anyone's listening to this, Bill, he was driving an ATV that I was in. He flipped it. You know, the scar, can you see it?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah, I was permanently paralyzed before when I met Jenna. That's why I know she's the one, you know.
Yeah.
The other women, they couldn't deal with that shit.
Yeah.
All of a sudden, I got this limp hand. Long story longer, dude, I had no insurance. I just paid, we did together, we just paid, I pay my debts, you know, like
Yeah.
culture matters. Like I was said, I'm eventually going to pay these hospitals and all these things, but it ain't going to be today. I got to build this company.
Yep.
So imagine I had that product.
Yeah. Or like,
I mean, I had no health insurance. I had
Wow,
no employer because it was just me and YouTube and the video, the interviews and the right couple
yep.
coaching. So that was a traumatic event. So you're saying that the products that you help people get every day, like that's something that if I had that type of disability business insurance, what would that be called? Like
You could get an indemnity plan. I could have sold you an accident policy that would have paid you $25 per stitch that you had, as an example.
I could have been richer
Right.
from the accident than the damn culture at that point. I wasn't doing well. It wasn't working. I was still in the beginning. People, you know, they didn't like me the way that you know, oh, Jay, yeah, he's great. It was, I wish we met then. We would
I
have,
know.
we would have had a ball, dude. I used to go into offices with like golden truck nuts and I would put them like the truck, I would string them around my waist and I would walk around and I would make, you know, hot calls
Yeah.
at real estate offices. Like you got to start with your heart. And I would do it live on speaker and I'd walk around with the balls. Jenna made me throw them out though. Like I started to mature over time, but that worked. You know, I wasn't slinging, I was doing my own thing. Kind of.
Yeah. Yeah.
But anyway, then I got paralyzed and it was a traumatic financial like it's a scary situation. So these things do happen. I want to give my testimony to you for the audience. Like if someone's listening to this and thinks they're the king of the world, like I did at that point, you're going to get crushed.
Oh yeah. You don't buy a fire extinguisher when the house is on fire. You know what I mean?
Like these are real products with real solutions for real people. And without people like you, you're saying people don't end up getting. So I have some guilt right now. I'm thinking like, dude, we talked a year ago. I've been wanting a policy. I haven't done shit.
Yeah.
Now, of course, you know, I have to have some more arguments with Jenna. Like we have to get on the same page on this thing.
Right. Right.
You know, she doesn't want to hear every day, come to the kitchen, you could die tomorrow. Like, but people like you, we need you.
Yeah.
I know I'm not going anywhere with this. This is more like a testimony. But what are your thoughts? Like, is that motivating to you? I guess is that part of the why outside of like, yeah, you can make a great income, but ultimately there are people behind this that they're better off because of these services.
Especially in our industry, agents will not have the capacity to become like the elite of the elite salesperson until they have their first death claim. Because luckily, knock on wood, I've probably only had 8 in my entire career because I deal with usually a younger clientele for my personal book of business. But when you deliver that check, like I had 2 over the summer. And like, I remember these people, you know, their dogs' names are in my CRM. I'm also a little bit of a freak and I have like slightly photographic memory. So I remember kids' names and dates of birth and all that stuff. But, you know, when you get a call from a client from 2013 and she's like, hey, Al passed away and starts crying and is like, do we still have that policy? And you're like, yeah. And it's worth whatever, I think it was 47,300 or something, that I physically remember being in Philadelphia, ramming it down their throat at the time because they only wanted to buy this much and couldn't afford to buy this much. And I was like, based on, you know, age, health, whatever, did my whole spiel, you need the Holy Cow plan. And she was like thanking me for being a persistent asshole at the time
Wow.
to have them get that. And when you deliver that check, how big or ever, how small, it doesn't bring that person back, but it surely helps the grieving process a little bit because you don't have to worry about any financial burden at that point, you know? And
How do we draw a line of demarcation between knowing when to be aggressive for the, when it's like the right thing to do, and then obviously on the other side of that story, we have people like Jordan Belfort, who in his youth, he was so, whatever he was, drugs, whatever he was doing, that same type of charisma or certainty was on the other, I would argue the other, well, not just me, but the federal government would argue,
yep.
it went a little bit too far,
Yeah.
It went too far and it hurt people. It wasn't. So how do you view that? Like, how do we reconcile those two, that conflict, do you think?
I think as a salesperson, you have to have the ability to be able to downsell yourself at times too. And if you can't, you're just thinking about the commission all the time and you're focused on higher premium, whatever, you're not going to last that long. Because in numerous situations that I can remember, I have said, you don't need this much, or get the 20-year instead of the 30-year, and here's why. Or something along the lines of like, I don't want this to hurt. It's just protection, things of that nature. And yeah, maybe only make like $50 or $100 in that sale, but you did that, you would be doing them a disservice, shoving something down their throat that they actually don't need. So I think the difference between our organization and others too, or just me personally as well, and how I train, is there is a blueprint to how you should do a needs analysis for people. And maybe it'll change based on a 40-year-old versus a 20-year-old versus a 70-year-old, which makes this business a little complicated. But you can't run around selling one cookie cutter program to everybody. There's got to be some sort of analysis. Our average sit takes about an hour and a half. And usually within that time, you can find within, 2 or 3% of what do I say, being wrong, the right solution for that person. So I think that really draws the line in the sand between people just facilitating transactions on a daily basis and actual salespeople.
How do you get people to actually agree with you on that? People that maybe they're themselves struggling. They want to help people, that they need to get a certain income. They need to get, how do you get people to align with that? Because it sounds like the marshmallow test, like don't eat the marshmallow, wait on the marshmallow. Like, how do you do it? And what's worked?
Yeah.
What has?
Teaching the agents that your first year is like, it goes by super fast. You have to think of this, and most agents don't, especially the ones that got trapped in the MLM or whatever. Most people only see like 10 yards in front of their face, especially in this industry. They're focused on today, tomorrow, maybe this week and this month. They're not projecting goals for 10, 15, 20 years. They're not even thinking subconsciously that they're going to be in this business in 10, 15, 20 years. When I took this on,
Really?
I was like, this is my career. I'm either going to sell the damn company at 40 or 50 years old, or I'm going to run out into the sunset, but I'm doing this. So being able to have that mindset of like, I am going to have this client, Betty Sue Johnson, for the rest of my life until she dies or I die. Yeah. So if I downsell her now, she'll probably have other needs in the future. Let's say they're 35 years old and they got no kids yet, but they're married. I know I'm going to make 4 or 5 more sales over the course of our career as client and agent. So why would I shove it down their throat when they don't even need it now? Because I'm going to be coming back in a year and doing another assessment anyway. So you have to think of the longevity of your client base. And this is why I have 93% client retention on my personal business, because I'm not doing that. I'm focused on the future all the time. Obviously, you have to give them the solution now, but you're going to sell that person 4 or 5 more times at least before you or they die. And you have to run and gun with that mindset every time.
How do we know if someone, what are some ways that if someone that wants to be in the business subconsciously doesn't want to be in the business for 30 years?
Immediately, I would say the monetary factor, but like I have to make 80 grand right now, like this year. Okay, why? Tell me why. Well, I was making 75 at my job or whatever the excuse is. There has to be a real why behind that versus an obligatory number. Because if you shout out like, I want to make $1 million this year. Yeah, me too. But why? And what's going to come from the million? You just want the money right now? Because yeah, I want you to be money driven, but for the duration of your career, no one comes out of school making $1 million or 500,000 or probably 250,000 at this point, unless you're a doctor.
No, it destroys culture.
Yeah, exactly.
Right? You haven't earned it yet.
Being money motivated is great. And that's the number one aspect of being here, because you can help people along the way with money, but there's got to be long-term goals. Hey, why do you want to join? Not even my organization. Why do you want to get your insurance license? I want to make a ton of money. Well, this year, 3 years, 5 years, when I'm advertising for recruits, quote unquote, I tell them my goal for you is to have a $25,000 renewal base, right? $25,000 a month coming in the door after year 3. So that way I'm projecting automatically to them, yeah, you're going to make money years 1 and 2, but we're instantly focused as soon as you walk in ATIG's door on year 3. And then we're going to have more long-term goals.
How did you come up with that timeline? Is it from all the years of experience, seeing what actually happens?
Years of experience and knowing that if they take this as a full-time job, because that's the other issue, is people don't treat this like a career. They work on Saturdays and Wednesdays and then screw around the rest of the time, right? If you were working in an office for Microsoft or whatever, you'd be in there 40 to 50 hours a week minimum, and you'd probably have to take some work home with you. Same here. It's not like you work 10 hours a week and make $250,000, right? So knowing that, I have a blueprint. If you take a month off, so you work 48 weeks, right? And I know the exact closing percentage of our worst people and our best people, and you can mitigate the averages of that. If you just close your lay down sales, right, on a weekly basis, which is about 30%. If you sit with 20 people, you're going to write 6 apps. You just are. They need it. They may not want it per se, but they're just going to fold, right? And 20% of people are probably going to give you the FU. So now there's 50% that are teeter-tottering on the fence that you have to force into a decision, right? That's where selling comes into play. But about 30% of the time,
I'm a teeter-totter.
Yeah.
Help me out. Tell me something.
Yeah, 30% of the time, they're going to fold. So in knowing that, if they do that consistently for 48 weeks for 3 years, their renewal should be anywhere from $20,000 to $30,000 a month.
30% of the teeter-totters are going to come around and say, I need that, is what you were saying. I just want to make sure I have my notes.
Correct.
How important is the follow-up, and how do you pursue follow-up? Do you have a philosophy around that? Do you even like that word, or do you have a different way do you talk about that?
It's funny that you mentioned that. I hate follow-up. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. I hate follow-up, and I hate the word quote. Drives me nuts, because quoting instills that I'm going to give you a price or obligatory number, and you're going to decide based on that price and no value that you're going to buy something. Makes no sense. If I said, hey, this car is 20 grand, you could be like, well, it's too cheap or too expensive. You're in control, right? So I hate follow-up, because that instills into salespeople, hey, Jay, I'm just following up, man, on that quote that I probably sent you 3 weeks ago. Just checking in, see if I did anything wrong, blah, blah, blah. If I'm following up with people, it's, hey, man, we discussed it. Your birthday is coming up. It's only going to get more expensive. I'm not trying to be pushy here, but I want to lock you in. I don't want to see you paying any more than you have to. Or, hey, man, I know you blew me off for a couple of weeks and you were on vacation and stuff like that. Here's an article on how this whole life policy helped this person in a time of need or whatever, as opposed to like the obligatory text message. Hey, man, just checking in. I can't stand that. And how you should be doing it is you should have a CRM or some sort of.
It makes you think of like you're trying to, you're trying to date Megan before you got married or something, like, and before they like you.
Yeah.
If I'm texting Jenna, like, hey, just checking in, it's like, friend zone.
Instantly.
You're done.
Instantly.
Imagine, like,
Oh
hey,
my
just
God.
checking in.
So bad.
Oh, I just thought like that's
The cringe
not gonna
factor is
work. I don't think.
horrible. Horrible.
Seems selfish. What do you think it is? Just checking in.
It's again, not so much laziness, but the fear of like, well, I don't want to lose it. I don't want to lose the sale. I don't want to be too pushy and lose it. The only way you're going to lose it is by not being pushy.
Yeah, I mean, I got this statue I want to show you because I'm very excited about it, but it was a gift recently. This is Nietzsche. And he said, what you fear, thank you, what you fear, you manifest. I'm oversimplifying.
Yeah.
But that's a big premise of a lot of his work. Like and you just hit it on the nail. You're afraid to lose it, so you're going to lose it.
100%.
Because you're acting in the opposite of what it takes. It's a wonderful, yeah, I just wanted to show you that. It's too bad for the audience, they can't see, but I got a statue of Friedrich Nietzsche I've always been obsessed with. But all right, so how do you approach quote, or like how do we demonstrate value?
Yep. So our approach from selling is always a 3-option close. I actually got this kind of from my dad being in the movie theater business. He worked for HR for Lowe's Theaters back in the day. And they got a ton of really smart people in that marketing department, because my dad would tell me stories of like how to sell more popcorn, right? And they'd make the small $2, the medium $3, and the large $3.15 if they wanted to sell more larges. And everybody was like, oh, the deal's unbelievable. We got to go with the large every time. So their profit margin went through the roof. If they wanted to sell more smalls, right? Like Starbucks does this, they might have a small and it's $3, the medium's $4, and the large is $7. Well, the large is a price buster. I don't want that. That's crazy. So I'm going to get the medium or the small, depending on the profit margins there. We take the same philosophy, and this is not being like a scummy salesperson, clients or future clients, if you're listening. It's providing 3 separate solutions. One's low cost, low value. One's medium cost, medium value, and one's high cost, high value. And based on the value that each product brings, yeah, there's going to be a cost associated with that, but you pick your poison at the end of the day. You want this one for now because it's all you can afford. You want the middle range one because you see some ROI or some value out of it, or you want to swing for the fences. Either one, all 3 are going to be customized to your solution, but I'm going to give you 3 options every time because it's very, very difficult for me to outline A, B, and C, and you say no. 85, 90% of the time, you're going to pick one of them.
And people generally fall where they are at in their life. And that's up to them, is the idea? Or
yep. And just to get into the weeds for a hot second, and I won't take too much time on it, but pitching life insurance, you have term, you have universal, you have GULs, IULs, whole life, etc. If I was pitching you life insurance, let's say you needed $1 million worth of coverage based on your liabilities. The first one would be low cost, low value, be it like a 20 or 30-year term. It'd be, let's say, $50 a month, right? The second one would be a term return of premium, whereas if you outlive it, you get all your money back. And then the third would be, let's say, whole life for $1 million. And it's like $700 a month. But at the end of this, if you decide to cash in the policy, you actually profit $400,000 if you could afford it. So Jay, what would you rather do? Would you like to light $18,000 on fire over the next 30 years by buying the cheap term insurance? Not saying it's wrong. It's just you get nothing back. Do you want to buy option B where you get all your money back and break even, or do you want option C where you profit? And obviously you have to be able to afford each one. And based on that, you tell me.
If the person has if hypothetically, I would think if a person has liquidity and their money isn't allocated already to other things, right? It's all about resources.
Yep.
And resourcefulness. It would seem, a fairly good idea to go with the third. Mm-hmm. If someone has no money or limited resources, maybe they have a porn addiction and it's a very expensive OnlyFans accounts. There's 17 different accounts. That'd be a little fun, but they have to hedge. So they'll rather lose the $20 a month or whatever, because they could die from a heart attack while that OnlyFans watching. God, Jenna's gonna kill me for this joke. No, but yeah, so I'm following you. That makes
Yep.
a lot of sense. I have a question on the whole, in the spirit of selling.
Yep.
Do you get the $1 million back and you can get a 40% return after all those years? So is it 1.4 million back?
It's
Or is it not the million back? It's 400 grand back. If
yeah,
you don't
it's the
die.
latter. So and
Okay.
to get
So
into
you're
the
still alive. You already won life,
yep.
and you get 400 grand. And there's an obvious cost to that, like kind of like a, correct if I'm wrong, you're looking at it as a savings account that's not going to blow up in fire and brimstone,
Right.
like the savings, whatever that.
And let's
SVB
say
bank.
you maybe you contributed $200,000 to that account over the course of 30 years. You get 400K back, let's say, and this is just an obligatory example.
Yeah.
But you get 400K back, so you profited 200,000. So essentially, you had free insurance for 30 years, plus you made a little bit of money. You doubled, right?
It is part of the reason that that carriers write these is because in essence, they know what to do, or they know other things of what to do with the float or with the aggregated premium. So they don't mind giving you that back or giving that incentive, because in that period of time that they were able to have that capital, your capital, on their balance sheet, because they know what to do that you don't. They are where you're not. They know who you don't know. So they know what to do with the money. You may not, and that's not like against anybody. It's just
right.
The world is a never-ending staircase, but of knowledge, right, and resources. So is that the idea, is that they can offer these types of things to us peons because they know what to do with the money.
Correct.
They
Correct.
know who to do with. And so they're creating incentives to create upward mobility. Like
right.
Person A, person B, and person C. They're all in different places of their life, theoretically. Person A maybe doesn't have literally access to liquidity or credit line.
Mhm.
Like they don't have $8,400 a year. They don't have $700 a month, literally. Now they could maybe, as free will conversation, if they stop subscribing to 7 or 8 OnlyFans, or they sell their car and get
down 8 Mountain Dews a day, whatever.
Yeah, they get rid of their $700 a month car payment, making 60 grand, but their car payment is like a mortgage. Right. There's all these, everybody's different.
Yep.
And that's kind of where I'm going with this, is like my curiosity, your curiosity is everybody's different. Everybody's bringing different experiences, different knowledge, different level of resourcefulness. Your job, your people's job, is to figure out, where are they at?
Right.
How many OnlyFans accounts? How much waste is in their life? How much sin? Right. So I'm not sure where I'm going with this, but
yeah. Well, and it's too, Jay, is there's so many people out there that, and I feel like Grant may fall into the category, or some other people too. It's like, man, real estate's the end all be all. Insurance is the end all be all. Stock market, end all be all. Amazon drop shipping, end all be all. You should never have insurance as your end all be all. You should never have stocks as your end all be all, et cetera. So we're just trying to find our solution and put it into your giant economic pie, because we should only be a sliver of it.
I want to culturally add that this is me saying this, not anybody else. Anyone that's saying end all be all and they're the solution is a cultural red flag. I just want to say, in the literature, at least, like for someone that studies culture,
right.
If I'm the panacea, I'm not God. I could easily, so that's something just, and I'm also, I want to add that doesn't mean that the person is actually trying to be evil. They just may have a blind spot. So yeah, it just you made me think. I thought of that. I was like, I think it's a really important point that you're bringing to light, is that are you saying that there isn't an end all be all? It's where is the person at and what do they need?
And if your advisor, right, we deal with a lot. I have a lot of financial advisors that I like and that I partner with, because they may not sell insurance, but they do investments, and we don't do investments, we do insurance. So there's a lot of quid pro quo. But if there's an advisor or someone in the sense of is just advising you, like you just said, to say, hey, why are you doing X, Y, and Z? You should be putting your money over here. Or why are you doing this? You should be buying real estate. Or why are you doing this? You should be buying stocks. Or this is the time to buy Bitcoin or whatever. We say that too, but it's never instead of. I'm never saying, hey, cash out your friggin' stock account and put it all into whole life. You know what I mean? I'm going to use some of your discretionary income. Now, I may say, hey, can you cut down from 5 packs a day to 1 so we can free up some cash to put it over here? That makes sense. But I'm never going to say, don't invest in watches because cars are way better. There's no way better. First of all, it needs to be your expertise. And second of all, you shouldn't be constantly moving money from one shiny thing to another. You need a full portfolio. And the richest people in the world, I love Kevin O'Leary to death, diversify. Not more than 5 to 10% of anything in one specific segment. You know what I mean?
Yeah, in your navigations with very successful people, even those in our peer group that have done because you mentioned a large base of your clientele is in our demographic.
Mm-hmm.
Of the most successful ones financially and wealth wise, what are some of the things that they do that, like, some of the patterns, some of the idiosyncrasies of really successfully minded people that you've interacted with? What do you think?
Shameless plug, at least in the insurance space, is taking 3 to 8% of your income. So 3 cents on every dollar to 8 cents on every dollar to protect the rest. So one thing is, like, if they ever croak or, like you, paralyzed, heart attack, stroke, cancer, whatever, they might have 5, 10, 15, 20 years of income to be able to shadow that, right? They're the money machine and they're buying the extended warranty on the money machine. That's one. Two is people making, I'll start the trend at 250,000 because I think that's a good income base where shit starts getting pretty fun and you can take gambles, but also start spreading money out.
And at our age, that's actually, because I looked this up the other day, that's the 1% income.
So
in our 31 to 34, that's the 1%.
Wow.
If you're at 31 to 34, that's the 1% in the whole country.
Wow. That's wild.
I just looked it up the other day because I was feeling a little down, I'm not perfect and I wanted a little boost.
Yeah. That's good. I'm going to print that out and put it on my office wall. That's awesome.
I mean, it's hard to know where to aim if you don't know where you're at.
Yeah.
Anyway, I'm off course here. What have you seen? Yeah, I'm sorry, I interrupted you.
No, you're good. Yeah, that like 250K range to infinity, of our peer group, I would say is the 3 to 8% on your insurance premiums. The other thing is diversification. Like a lot of, I'm a big watch fanatic, right? I'm wearing a Rolex sub right now. Nice. I have a bunch of watches. They're good investments, at least I think, right? This is not financial advice, but I think they're good investments. And seeing a lot of these like crypto millionaires and stuff go bust over the last year because they went all in onto NFTs and stuff like that. Like, I have some crypto. I'm not stupid. What if it went to a bajillion? I'm going to sprinkle a little funds over there. But I've been picking up watches from like people that definitely did not do well in that market. Now they're fire selling their fun stuff, you know what I mean? Which is crazy, but good for me. But diversification is key. You own a house, you own a rental property, 3 to 8% in your insurance. You're not buying stupid shit in terms of like, I mean, I still know some party animals, but like, they're not buying $1,500 bottles at the club, at the Cosmopolitan in Vegas. If they're going to partake in beverages or whatever, buy a nice bottle of bourbon, they're going to have it at their house. You know what I mean? Or something of that nature. So there's a threshold, I feel like, of limited waste of resources when you start hitting our age plus that 250 mark. You stop spending on dumb shit. Like occasionally, you've
noticed that in the peers that are actually becoming what they say and think they are
doing well. I'm not wearing a Kohl's suit with a Louis Vuitton belt, not the fake people, but the people that are actually making it happen. Now, granted, I might have a Louis Vuitton wallet or something like that every once in a while because you got to splurge on yourself too. But you're using most of the shiny objects as a resource, especially like in our industry. Like I fly first class all the time. Granted, I'm a little bougie and I can afford to do that now, but I do it for two reasons. One, because Steve Harvey said to do it back in the day, because
Really?
once you do it, you'll work your ass off to never fly coach ever again. So I heeded the advice, and it works because you don't want to do it. Every once in a while when I get bumped or whatever, I'm like, damn, this sucks.
It does
and
suck.
it's no offense to anyone that flies coach, but it's something that I like to do. First class for the comfort reason and because it makes you work hard. But two, I've gotten some of my best clients from first class. I've gotten some of my best agents from advertising a Rolex on Instagram. So
This
like
is such a timely conversation because I shout out to Jeff Mueller, who I'm a huge fan of, who on the way from Atlanta to Fort Lauderdale, I was sitting next to him. I was reading my Berkshire book and he's like, what do you do? And I basically said, hey, you ever heard of this podcast? He goes, yeah, I've been on it. I'm like a super nerd when it comes to value investing. And this amazing guy, man, was sitting right next to me. And I've listened to him on the Value Investor with Legends podcast.
wow.
Alama Temple grad, highly ranked in the value investing course there at not Temple, I'm sorry, Columbia Business School. And anyway, like that's my testimony for what you're. So I want to affirm what you're saying. Like this was just a couple of weeks ago, and I was like, wow, what a blessing. Turns out it was funny because I said, how many fans have you met? And he laughed. He's like, what are you talking about? Who cares about this stuff? Right. I was like, I'm a fan. I'd rather meet you than Kim Kardashian.
Right. Exactly.
You know, like you're the coolest dude ever. Right.
Yeah.
So because I listen to the podcast, just like people listen to us.
Yep.
So I just want like that immediately triggered that thought. You are so right about that. If about what you're saying, I want to challenge the audience to take that advice because I mean, how many people have you probably met?
Oh my God, hundreds.
Opportunities.
And either clients, peers, business relationships, people to invest with, or vice versa. I've sold a policy in first class. I was on a flight 3 weeks ago and I wrote a dude a term because he was overpaying. And he was like, what do you do? I like your shoes. You know, and we got into a conversation. And on a 3-hour flight, if you're trapped next to me, you might get sold some insurance. So, but like I can't even put a number on the ROI for overpaying for a plane ticket in my mind. It may not be for everybody. If you're listening to this, you have a W-2 job and you're making 60 grand a year and it's not beneficial for you to do it. Don't do it. Don't waste money on it unless you want the comfort every once in a while.
How important do you think is self-introspection in success?
It's like probably number one, if not top 2 or 3. I almost gave myself a disease in terms of self-reflecting on like every bit and piece of ROI on either an activity that I'm doing or something that I'm purchasing. Like, and it may not be immediate, but like watches were a hobby to me, but then I learned that I can profit on them. And now it's turned into this disease of like self-investment but now I know, oh my God, I love them. I get to wear them every once in a while. Sometimes I let them go. I'm going to advertise with them. Clients see them. They're like, wow, this guy's really knows what he's doing. Agents see them and they're like, wow, I really want to work with that guy. So being able to, one, know your limit because I am a spender, and being able to like, you know, it's almost like saying I am an alcoholic, you know, I am a spender, and being able to realize that, but using that as more of a superpower than anything else.
How important is it to be that as an entrepreneur, to be able to spend?
You have to. You know, if you saw my credit card bill from last month, most of the viewers or listeners would throw up, you know. Now granted, there's some major business players that are way higher up than me, but
Sure.
When you pay Amex $77,000 for 1 month, it doesn't feel too good. But knowing that was, you know, some office furniture, lead bills, CRM, payroll, commissions, et cetera, paying an assistant, all that stuff. you're going to get way more out of it. But you have to be super comfortable with letting that money flow, or it's never going to come back to you. Can't be a tightwad and run a business, you know?
Yeah. What do you think? I guess what's the biggest lesson of 2022? Well, 2022, so 2022, and then 2023 so far.
2022 was because it was the first year building, was trying to reel myself in and saying, hey, you're in your first 12 months again, almost brand new. Yes, Pete, you've been doing this for 12 and a half years. You're a stud. You have not built, you've had an agency, and granted, that's like owning a company kind of, but you have not built an organization of this magnitude before. And it's April and you haven't had the results that you want, April 2022, like stop kicking yourself in the ass, because I tend to do that. I'm like you know, I need that bump or that reassurance, because I'm like, man, all these people are so much farther ahead. And like, my wife's a good proponent of this, of being like, Pete, you're 6 months in to this business that's
shout out to Megan. She's the shit.
like relax.
You guys are a great team.
Thank you.
That's some good, that's dude, that's some damn good advice she's giving you.
Yeah.
It sounds like my wife, well, to be.
Yes.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
But finish that thought and then I have another question.
Yes. So 2022 is self-reflection on like comparison kills, I would say, is the overall theme. Do not worry about where you're at in the present, because it is only a blip on the radar. Just like on the last podcast that I was on with you and I talked about all that debt, like I was in it for 18 months, but looking at the entire career, it's not that long. It's the same thing with this. You're not achieving results yet. Don't worry about it. Be patient. And for 2023, it's been reevaluating where I spend my time most wisely. Over the past 3 to 4 years, a lot of speaking engagements, a lot of conferences, a lot of flying all over the place. And granted, I definitely got some ROI out of that. That's invaluable. You know, I can't put a monetary value to it. However, being more conscious of my time and really optimizing it, especially now owning and running a fairly large organization, is the running theme this year. Like, I'm not going to waste my time on nonsense. And that's not like dissing whoever's asking for it. It's just, hey, if I'm going to do a coaching call, it's going to be 15 minutes now with an agent, not an hour. You know what I mean? Or I'm going to spend 5 minutes on doing this instead of all day, that kind of stuff.
Is it hard to say no? And then if yes or no, like, how do you do it?
Yeah, because you feel bad. Now I let Calendly do it, so I don't have to do it. So I have 10, 15, and 30-minute call sessions on Calendly. They just pick, and if they're paying, they get the 30 minutes. Otherwise, if it's my people. And the only reason I did that too, I read Big Money Energy probably 3 times now by Ryan.
Dude, Ryan is a beast. Just saw him the other day. I sat in the front row and I was like a little kid. He goes, "Who is this guy?" I swear to God, like I'll tell you after.
That's amazing.
I love that guy. That guy is badass.
And he even said, you have to limit your calendar to 15-minute intervals. Even if it's an hour meeting, that's 4 intervals. You know what I mean? And even talking to, like, I love my parents to death. I like my family, etc. But like talking to your mom for 15 minutes, you get a lot done. You get a lot out. You're not FaceTiming for an hour and a half. You know what I mean? So you start to squeeze the time and getting as much out of it as humanly possible when you really diminish the length of time that you're spending on stuff.
I got a personal question for you.
Sure.
That I'm sure the audience inevitably will have to deal with if they haven't already. Like, we plan on procreating.
Yeah.
How am I gonna do what I'm doing with everything I'm doing and rear this child? Like, what's your advice? What have you already screwed up?
Yeah.
Because I'm trying to kick the can down the road. I'm not only afraid to do it because, my own issues psychologically.
Yeah.
I'm also thinking, like, how the heck am I going to do that? I have all these other people I'm responsible for. So should I do it?
I would do it. We're
talking about baby, but everybody.
Yes.
He's has
a baby. So Mallory's almost 4 months old now. November 30th, I had her. right in the middle of Q4. So that was hellacious because that's our busiest time of year. But one, going back to the reoccurring theme, we have a nanny. And I think if you're an entrepreneur and you don't have a nanny, you're an idiot. So
good advice.
Yeah, being able to now it's like sad. And granted, I'm still a dude, so my feelings are maybe a little less sentimental than Meg's might be, but it's not hard to give your child to somebody else. I will tell you that. Like, unless I'm a robot and no one else is, for 7-8 hours a day, it's pretty easy to go, here, you shit and puke on this person. And then I'm going to go make money so I can pay that person a salary. You know what I mean?
Compartmentalize it.
Yes. And it's not that bad. And honestly, after the first 2 months, you're like, I need a break anyway. But it's also awesome because your why changes instantly. Like that kid comes out. And I've been telling everybody, either podcasts or interviews or whatever, I want to write so many insurance applications so she never has to. If she wants to, she totally can, but she's not going to have to ever.
It's cool.
So having that it really elevates you to another standard of like, how many Rolexes can I own or whatever? Now I got to take care of this kid and give her the best life possible. So now I'm going to really optimize my time and work my ass off. And the other thing it does too is like, if you're listening to this, and whether you're an entrepreneur or you're working a W-2 job or anything, you're out of the house basically 8 hours a day, let's say, right? When you come back or in the morning before you leave, you are so much more present with your kid versus like the first month when we had no nanny and she was screaming and pooping all over us and whatever. And I was still working from the house for the first 45 days or so before the office opened. I found myself not being present. I found myself feeding her a bottle after a couple of weeks, but being on my phone at the same time. Now, because you're away 7-8 hours a day, at least, when you come home, it's you have my undivided attention, kid, until you go to sleep. And I think it's a nice dichotomy of doing that. And you don't resent your child for it. You don't, not miss the moments that she smiles or laughs or whatever. So I think that's super important. Give up control so you can take it back later.
Wow. That's great. Thanks.
Yep.
Final question. What is the call to action for 2023? What do we need to be doing to succeed in this? Some industries are not, maybe they're the exact opposite of what it sounds like yours is right now, as far as how that works. So, what do you think? All right. So what do you think you'll need to be thinking when that wave starts to stabilize and then potentially even go down? What's going to get you through that time? And what's your final call to action for all of us? 2023, 2024.
Still realizing it's a blip on the radar, and macroeconomics, the country, the world, whatever, there's always recessions, there's always depressions, there's always bull markets. It's cyclical. Every 7 to 10 years, you can watch the graph. You know what I mean? So don't treat it as like it's the end of the world, because it's been the end of the world 50 other times, so it's not that huge of a deal. But if you're running a business it doesn't have to be insurance agency or podcasting or coaching or anything. You could be running a Dairy Queen. Doesn't matter. Don't let the macro environment affect your micro, whether it be your business, your marketing resources, even COVID, man. Like some bars and restaurants instantly shut down. There were a couple bars and restaurants out here that went instantly to takeout. For to-go cups for booze and for food. Like they were nimble and they moved with the times. They didn't just give up. So in good times, make sure you go all in. So that way you have the resources that if something happens in the macro that's catastrophic, it doesn't affect your economy. Yours is different.
Pete, thank you. I think we all need to hear that and re-listen to that. Thank you for doing this. Thank you all for listening. Check out episode 100, season 9, completely different conversation. Flows really well into this one today. And we will see you all on the next episode of the Culture Matters podcast.